Yeah, there's some information I left off. I'm still finishing up here. Uh, I wanted to give you the websites. There's animalequity.org and usdeputy.org. Those are the websites you can go to give to these people. I'm going to hold this up. It's really simple. Just animal equity, one word, and then .org and U.S. Deputy for the U.S. Deputy Sheriff's Association. They're really easy to remember, really easy to type in to your URL thing on your browser. One thing you can also do they send in that really matters is really good for morale is one of these notes that they send in with. I'm going to read it. I should have written it. I wonder if this thing flips the screen, so I can't read it off the screen. I'll read it. You probably don't get a thank you very often. Oftenly, yeah. If you just say anything like thank you, just put it in a card like this, and say, hey, I care about you guys. I appreciate the work you do. I appreciate the work you do for you guys, and I appreciate them for heaven's sake. It takes a special person to be a police officer. My uncle, or a serviceman. I like to talk about my uncle John Koenig. He learned how to be a soldier, and he was very proud of being a soldier. They make you clean yourself up and clean your act up and get you disciplined and stuff like that. Of course, your mothers ought to be doing that too. You'd be saving your boys a lot of trouble, in the service if you can teach them, just good housekeeping skills and stuff like that. But he was really proud of that, and all his sons were servicemen except for his youngest son, who became a policeman. And they're all, they all loved. They were just great. I mean, there's some people that are just cut out for it. And let's see, my brother-in-law, my ex brother-in-law, but I still think of him as my brother-in-law. His brother was a policeman, and he would tell me stories. Oh my goodness, he would, just awful things that policemen have to do. I mean, just I don't even know. Well, I'll tell you. I'll tell you. He, there's a law that the policemen have to, if there's a suicide or something like that, or somebody gets killed, the policemen have to clean it up. And there's sort of a law about it. And I think it's because when they're cleaning up all the mess and everything, a lot of times they find evidence, and so what happens is that if someone else cleans it up, then a police officer's testimony is much more reliable than just your general citizen, so they have to do it. Anyway, he would get really angry about people that would kill themselves, because he told me one time he had to, he was cleaning up. This guy blew his brains out, and it was all over this wall. Police officers, they have to deal with stuff that we don't even think about, stuff we never even think about. But he was telling me he was cleaning up this wall, and there was a piece of this guy's eyeball that was still stop. I'm laughing about it. It's not very funny, even very funny to him. He had to dig it out of this wall. And it was just, oh, what a thing to have to do. The things police officers have to go through. It's just incredible. I've told you the story. I think I've written a story. I don't know that I've talked about it. There was this one police officer that, he gave me a ticket. This was back in the days when you could say you were sorry, and they would not give you a ticket. This was back in those days. And I was sitting in his car and we were chatting, and I figured, well, I'll be nice to this policeman. Maybe he won't give me a ticket, So I'm making chit chat with him. And I didn't really understand police officers. I thought they were people that look for thrills. And I said, well, what's the most exciting? Have you ever had to shoot anyone? Or, what's the most exciting thing that's ever happened to you? And he just thought, and he didn't like that. He doesn't like people that think he was a good police officer. Anyway, he said that well, I'll tell you a couple of stories. He said he told me this one story. There's this guy in this wreck, and this guy's flesh was just hanging off his leg, a piece of his flesh. And he was the first one on the scene. And he administered to the guy as best he knew how, first aid and stuff like that. But he wasn't really a doctor or anything, so he was waiting there for the ambulance to get there. And so what happens is he's waiting there, and what happens? There's this feral cat. It's in this place. It wasn't far from my home. This is a place where people leave their cats, and their dogs out, when they don't want to They figure some nice farmer will take care of them or something like that. They can't take care of them. So there was this feral cat there, and there was this piece of this guy's flesh. It was hanging and it was just blowing in the breeze, and there was nothing you could do about it. And this cat ran up and bit the flesh off and ran away. And of course, he tells me this story. I'm like, ugh, And he's trying to tell me, in a subtle way, this job, there's some really awful things that you see, and this, I mean, that affect you, just to see them. And anyway, I told him, I said, well, that's just terrible. I figured out, why he was telling me the story. I said, well, that's terrible. I'm sorry. I'm glad there are people like you that want to deal with difficult problems like this and want to be a police officer so the rest of us can, have a safer world to live in. And he told me, and then when he told me that story, he told me another story about how there was another car wreck. I have to wipe my nose. I don't want to look bad. Well, I've got a problem like that. I don't have, in the future I'll have to have like a hanky or something. Well, I guess you've seen this long enough. Anyway, so what happened was, once he told me that story, he wanted to tell me another story. He was the first one on the scene. It was two parents and their little daughter. And anyway, both the parents were killed instantly in this car wreck. And he was there, and there was a little girl, and the little girl was about the same age as his little boy. And this little girl, there was no one. This little girl was going to die. I mean, she was severely injured, and he was only there. I don't know, it was just a few minutes, and he was just waiting for someone to get there, and they weren't going to get there in time to help him anyway. And he had to tell. And this little girl, her parents had never told her anything about God or what was going to happen to her after she died, and he was just trying to. She was just trying to say, what's going to happen to me, and it was just an awful story. And this guy who told me, he said, he didn't get all choked up or anything when he was saying it, but he said, there was about 2 weeks after that when I couldn't say anything to anyone, and the things they go through. I mean, they go through post-traumatic stress and all kinds of things, just stuff that they see, stuff that you never think you'll see. Being a first responder, and I just think it takes a special person to do that kind of thing. And I don't know. I like to think of my uncle and my cousins, and they're it's kind of inbred into that family. I mean, to be a police officer or that kind of thing. I respect them. I really do. I love them anyway. And we can't do enough for them. So anyway, that's all I have to say. God bless you guys.